If you're new to seed starting and are feeling a little bit insecure, this conversation is for you. I invited Jessica to join me today so she could share her love for gardening and walk us through her own seed starting journey. What she has learned, what surprised her, and how she kept going even when things felt a little bit confusing. My hope is that hearing her experience helps you feel a little bit more inspired and a little bit less alone. I am so excited that you're here. I cannot wait to, I don't know, show the people that are watching this video everything basically about you and how you do your own seed starting. And I was trying, like I said before we started recording, I can't remember how we met. I know it was through
Yeah, I
Instagram,
mean,
but I
it's
can't
been,
remember. Yeah, I can't remember
yeah,
which post or which reel. I know it was at least a couple of years ago. But I'm so
yeah,
excited.
for
I'm so
sure.
excited. So for the people that are watching this video, I just want you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about how big your garden is, where you're located, what kind of gardening you do. If you do mostly vegetables, flowers, acres of land, greenhouses, all of that good stuff.
So I'm Jessica. I live in Spanish Fork, Utah. So we're zone 5 or 6. It kind of depends on which map you're using. I have, it's a really hard gardening climate, to be honest. We have really, really cold winters. Well, normally, right now I don't have any snow. We normally have a bunch of snow. So we have really cold winters, and that's when we get most of our moisture, and then really hot, dry summers. So the plants that we grow here have to be pretty hardy. So we have a half an acre. I just live in a little suburb neighborhood. So we have been here about 10 years. And so we just have been slowly adding on. We built our house, so we started with a blank slate. It was just bare dirt when we moved in. So we put the front yard in the first year, and then little by little added to the backyard and added to the garden. And I've always been interested in plants. I've always loved plants, loved nature. So it was fun to get this big of a space to be able to enjoy plants and gardening and expand my garden palette, I guess, just like be able to experiment with different plants and things. So then in 2025, no, last year was 2025. In 2020, we built the greenhouse and some raised beds in the backyard. Prior to that, I had dabbled in seed starting inside and had never had good success. And I don't know how I convinced my husband, having had really really poor success with indoor seed starting. I don't know how I convinced him to let me build a greenhouse in the backyard, but he was game, and we built a little potting shed that's attached to a greenhouse. I'll make sure and send lots of videos of those so people can see. It is my happy space. I absolutely love it out there. And I don't sell many things. I have a few friends that buy things, or I give some things away. But I've had 3,000 plus little seedlings in that greenhouse before, and it's just such a joy for me. I love watching that whole process of starting with this little, what looks like a grain of dirt, putting it in soil, giving it some water, and watching it grow. It brings me tremendous satisfaction. I don't know why. I'm sure other people watching this will understand.
I love it. So you mentioned that you didn't have very good results indoors before the greenhouse. How did
No.
that look like the
Yeah.
first year that you said, I'm gonna try a few plants from seed? How did it look like for you? Was it like a whole shelving unit? Was it just like a little corner here or there? How did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think my first year I had one south facing window, and so I just set up a table in that window and just naively thought that the sun that came in that window would be enough for the seedlings, and they germinated great. But I'm sure you know they got super leggy and did not have enough light. So I maybe got a handful of plants to like make it out into the garden. And so then the next year, my husband built like this little. We're like excessive DIYers. It's just ridiculous. So he built me this little like indoor shelving unit with some plastic around it so that I could take it outside on sunny days and bring it inside if it got too cold. And I had better luck with that. I still didn't put any grow lights inside of it for whatever reason. But then I had that year, I discovered what damping off was. I had never had issues with that. And I lost a lot of plants to damping off. So then the next year, I think I explored and got a couple of grow lights, and they did better, but I still had damping off issues, and they still were leggier than I wanted them to be. And so that hardening off process was super difficult because they were so leggy to get them outside to handle, wind and whatnot. They just didn't do very well. And so I was just so discouraged by, like, it was so fun to like see them germinate and start to grow and then put that time in and then not have them make it outside. And I think it was that year that I took, through our extension service, there was a master gardener class, and I took that class just, wanting to learn more or whatever. And they talked a lot about seed starting indoors and what you would need. And then I think he gave me the idea of the greenhouse. He mentioned something about the amount of fake light that you would have to give it, like the number of hours you have to give a plant versus what that plant would actually need from the actual sun. And it was like, bing, duh. The sun is awesome. Let's just use the sun
Yeah.
instead of spending all that money. And I didn't really have a space indoors that I was willing to dedicate to just seed starting. And so to be able to, it was like, do I put the money into buying a bunch of shelves and lights, or do I put the money into buying a little greenhouse? And so we opted for the greenhouse.
I'm just very I guess not surprised, but like shocked maybe to see that you didn't have any good results indoors and you just went straight for the greenhouse. Like, I'm going to make this work. Because I feel that sometimes it's the opposite, right? You're like, oh, I feel so good about growing inside. Like, maybe I can add a greenhouse, right? Instead of, I'm failing at this, let's just get a
Yeah,
greenhouse
yeah,
for like.
absolutely. That's that's the route I went. And then I was obviously like charmed by all the Victorian greenhouses I see in England and whatnot, and thought it would be just like a cute architectural structure to have in my backyard. So I think like the aesthetics of it, plus just wanting a better seed starting place, I like those combined. It was just like, yeah, let's just do the greenhouse. It sounds fun.
So you mentioned that you have, been interested in gardening and everything that involves, but do you remember what really pushed you to start that first year to start anything from seed? What was it? Vegetables? Was it flowers? Or what was the thing that you say, you know what, I'm going to give
Yeah.
this a try?
So I think it was initially vegetables. I've always, I remember having a vegetable garden as a kid. My parents always had one in the backyard, and I loved being able to go out and pick fresh beans or whatever. And then so I know that first year I did mostly vegetables with some flowers. And it's funny, as I've done this longer, I've almost switched completely to just flowers. Like I do enjoy some vegetable gardening, but I don't enjoy processing vegetables and whatnot in the garden. And so it then became a chore to like, now I have 8 million tomatoes, or now I have 8 million beans. What do I do with all these?
Yeah.
Where the flowers just became something that was like free and easy, like free in like headspace, if that makes any sense. Like I could go out and enjoy my flowers and pick them and take bouquets to friends or bring some inside. It became less stressful and less maintenance to do flowers. And then I also noticed there was one year that I was curious just to experiment. I bought some starts at Home Depot, I think, of some pumpkins and some cucumbers. And then I also just started at the same time when I could plant those out in the yard. I also started some seeds of the same varieties and just was curious which one would do better. And the seeds that I planted outside just straight in the garden were far better. They fruited faster, the plants got bigger. And so for me, I realized that most vegetables, the ones that I wanted to grow at least, did better just starting straight out in the yard versus starting them in the greenhouse and then planting them outside. And so that was like, oh, now I don't have to use all this space for my vegetable starts in the greenhouse. Now I have all this extra space. I can have, fun flowers or whatnot. I still do some vegetables in the greenhouse. I normally start peppers and tomatoes, and occasionally tomatillos, although those do just fine just starting outside in the yard too. So it's just funny, the evolution of like learning, like the different things that have worked for me and what doesn't work, and just like seeing the journey of how I started or what I started and now what I enjoy starting, which is definitely I definitely prefer flowers at this point.
And I am going to be adding a bunch of links to Jessica's Instagram account so that you can see, everything that she does. I mean, she's amazing. She's an artist. Okay, gardening is just a little bit
Well,
of
thanks.
the amazing things that she does. So you can just check everything that she's good at. So the first year that you had your greenhouse, how did that go? Did you run into some problems? Did you discover other things?
So one thing that the greenhouse, a lot of people don't realize you have to heat a greenhouse. Whatever temperature, like the sun heats it up obviously during the day, but then as soon as the sun goes down, whatever temperature is outside, that's what the inside of the greenhouse goes to. There is no insulatory value in a greenhouse whatsoever. And so I lost some things because I didn't have an adequate heater. So figuring out temperature control was tricky the first little bit. It just takes some experimenting and trial and error. But I found a greenhouse heater that we had to switch power. So if you do want a greenhouse, you do have to recognize that you're going to need a power source to the greenhouse. And the heater that we ended up using is a 220 volt. So we had to switch the electricity, which my husband, thank heavens, knows how to do all that kind of stuff. So we had 220 run to the greenhouse. So that was a trial and error. And then because it gets so warm, on a cloudy day, it's maybe 20 degrees warmer in the greenhouse, but on a sunny day, it's 30 to 40 degrees warmer in the greenhouse than it is outside. So on like a nice spring day that's maybe 55, it will get to almost 90 or
Oh,
higher
wow.
depending on the sun that day. And so things dry out a lot faster. So I have to treat it like an infant almost, that I have to check on it a couple of times a day, to make sure that things the things are wet enough. Because if I forget to water things in the morning and then I'm out running errands all day and it's a super sunny day, if it's gone 4 hours, with this hot sun and that greenhouse that warm, things can die
Yeah.
super quick.
Yeah.
So going on vacation is very stressful in the spring. I've got one neighbor friend that is super into gardening and stuff, and also has a little greenhouse. So I trust her to come and babysit my plants when I go on vacation. But really, almost no one else, just because nobody understands how quick things can go badly when you have brand new little baby seedlings. So that was some trial and error there at that first year, losing things to letting them dry out too fast, how much I have to water, and then overwatering. I mean, it's the same as inside. When you overwater something, there's algae issues on your dirt, and you get fungus gnats easier. So there's just that whole learning curve that first year or two. And I still make mistakes. I still mess up sometimes, and I think it was last spring. I was gone for a couple of days and just asked my husband to keep an eye on it, and he forgot, and so then I lost a bunch of stuff. And trying not to be mad at him when when he forgot to water something. And yeah, it's just plant life.
That's awesome. I don't know why it made me think of it, but you mentioned, the fungus gnats. Did you ever have to fight like wild animals trying to get in there because of the warmth of the greenhouse?
No, I've never had to deal with that. I don't know. Utah's kind of an interesting place. Up in the mountains, I've got mountains I can see out my windows that, I can be like escaped into the high alpine mountains in 10-15 minutes if I want. But here in the valley, it's if we weren't tending it all the time, it would be pretty barren. And so
Hmm.
I don't have squirrels where I'm at. I don't have raccoons. I mean, occasionally you'll see like a roadkill or something, but not anywhere to where I see them in my yard. So yeah, I really don't have like critters. I mean, we get insects, obviously.
Hmm.
Sometimes I
Hmm.
get wasps trying to build nests inside the greenhouse because it's warm, and they take longer to die because it's still warm in the greenhouse. So I have to watch out for bugs and insects and things, but no, no larger critters, thank heavens.
So, when you got your greenhouse, and I guess you could say going back to when you had your first setup indoors, what were the resources that you relied on for, like trying to learn or trying to pick up a few tips? Was it mostly the library, your local groups, like you mentioned, your Master Gardeners group? What were those places that you would normally will go for, like how to heat a greenhouse or how to do
Yeah,
this?
yeah, absolutely. So the master gardener class, there were a few people that had greenhouses that I could ask questions, and then there was one time I got really lucky. I happened to be wandering around Home Depot in the plant section, and struck up a conversation with this adorable old man, and found out that he ran a greenhouse at a local high school. And so he was a wealth of information. He was so happy to tell me things, and he gave me his phone number and told me where I could come in and meet and see the greenhouse that he ran at the high school. And that was during COVID. And so the high school wasn't having active classes anymore, but he had already started, they'd started seeds in like February, and then school got shut down in March. And so then
Mm-hmm.
he had this whole operation that he was trying to run mostly by himself, because the students weren't there. And so I was able to go and help him at the greenhouse, and start seeds with him and see how he watered things. And he let me bring my big, like my outdoor containers, like that I put on my porch. He let me bring those, and I potted up stuff. And so just I was able to work with him there and ask him questions as I thought of them. It was like a really lucky situation, that I was able to meet him and learn from him. It was great. So anyone that wants to learn more about it, I recommend, going, like, honestly, going to your local high schools, because almost every high school has a greenhouse. And plant people love plant people, right? We love talking plants. Even those of us like me who are mostly introverted, I find another person that likes to talk plants, and I'll talk for hours.
Yeah.
So, like, ask if you can volunteer and help them in their operation. I'm sure they would love to have an adult to talk to rather than just a bunch of high school kids that may or may not really actually like plants. Do you know what I mean? They just like took the class because it was a class they needed
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
But offer your time, and help them in whatever they need, so that you can then glean information from them. It was great. He showed me his calendars where he kept track of when he started things, and he was very meticulous on, like, when they started a seed, when it germinated, so that he can then look at that calendar from year to year, so he would know, oh, this, and he would go back and make notes, like, oh, this one I probably should have started this a couple of weeks earlier, or I started this too early and the plants got too big before I could sell them. So he took meticulous notes that way, so that he would remember from year to year when to start things and what worked and what didn't. So that was really good information. So that, because I'm not like a journal person. I don't get a day planner or anything. I don't write that kind of stuff down. But I do in my greenhouse. I write down when I start my seeds, and how they worked, and when they germinated, and all that kind of thing, so that I don't have to remember it from year to year, because I know I'm not going to. I just won't remember that kind of stuff.
So you do have some sort of system to record dates and when to start certain plants or what to
Yeah.
do to certain seeds. And I know that many people that are watching this video is probably going to be the first year trying this, right? Like they're gonna jump in,
Yeah, absolutely.
probably not
Yep.
directly into a greenhouse, although probably many of them are. But
Yeah.
how important do you think is to just keep track of all that information that, like you say, I'm not gonna remember next year. I'd rather have it written
Yep.
down. How important do you think that is?
For me, it's really helpful, because I know if I had started things, back when I was starting things inside the house, I did not keep track of information. And so it was like trying to remember, okay, I know I started these. How long did it take? Is this normal? Why isn't it germinating as fast as I thought it would? So it just took that, like, headache out. It takes that headache out of trying to remember, what was successful and what wasn't, and did I do something different to this seed? As the more you learn, there's seeds that need cold stratification, and there's seeds that do better germinating in dark conditions, or there's some seeds that
Mm-hmm.
need to be, soiled, like, just on the top of the soil. They need light to germinate. So keeping track of the different things that I try, now, is super helpful information. So I have an Excel spreadsheet, which sounds so nerdy, but I have an Excel spreadsheet that I've started, and I save from year to year, And I keep track of, I wrote in the first column I write down, the name of the seed, and then the next column I put how many weeks before my last frost date I should start those seeds. And so then, and then in the next column, I have any pertinent information like cold stratification or light to germinate or whatever. I write that in it. And so then I organize that Excel spreadsheet by that second column of weeks before my last frost date, so that then when I print it out, I have all the seeds at the top that that I need to start 12 weeks before my last frost date. And then the next one, 8 weeks before my last frost date or whatever. So that then as I'm starting seeds, I don't forget to start one that I know I wanted to start, because I have, I think you use the same thing, the photo envelope
Yeah,
container with
the
all my
storage,
seeds
the
and my
plastic
seed
storage.
packets. Yeah, exactly. That's the photo storage. And I have those just alphabetized by the name of the seed. And so then I have forgotten in years past, like, oh nuts, I like, going through my C's or whatever, and I realized, oh, I should have started this 6 weeks ago instead of right now, and then been really mad at myself. So that way I can keep myself organized so that I know I'm
Hmm.
starting everything at the right time and I'm not forgetting to start something. So then every year, like December or January, I'll pull up last year's Excel spreadsheet and pull my box of seeds next to me and go through and say, okay, I know I want to start these again. And I edit my Excel spreadsheet so that it matches what I have this year. And then I know what seeds I need to order and try and keep track of that, because there have been so many times that I haven't done that I end up buying duplicates of everything I already have, and I'm like, rats, I really didn't need to spend that much money this year. So it just helps minimize like the frustration in myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. For you growing in a greenhouse in your climate, in the place where you garden, are there any specific challenges that you go through when it comes to starting seeds early in the year?
Um, it I have never really kept track of how much it costs just to heat my greenhouse. I have to say I haven't noticed like a huge spike in my energy bill. But there are some things like the Zeanthus that I really, really love that I have to start in January. So, um, some people I think don't want the expense of that, and that's a valid thing to understand.
Hmm.
But the benefit, like how much healthier my plants are in my greenhouses versus what I had. I mean, yours always are amazing, and I'm so impressed by your seed startup that you've got there at home. I never had anywhere near that much success. So if you're able to to set up a thing like Roxana's got in her space, I think sometimes that would be easier, because then you're already heating your house or whatever. You don't have that extra expense of heating the greenhouse. So yeah, I do have to worry about making sure that the greenhouse is heated, because, like I said before, like as soon as the sun goes down, everything would just freeze in the greenhouse. So I do have to make sure that everything's running properly, and I have a little Bluetooth thermometer temperature thing in the greenhouse, so that I can check and make sure that the heater is keeping it, because it's not like I'm heating it to 80 degrees or something. I just try and maintain it so that it's at like 45 to 50 degrees at night. And then in the daytime, obviously it doesn't need to run as much on a sunny day. So there's just that added extra, like checking that and making sure things are working right and making sure that the heater is keeping it warm enough. But after a couple of years of doing it, I don't really have to monitor as much as more anymore, because I know what I did last year and it worked, and so I just kind of keep doing the same thing. So it's just like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets. So those first couple of winters were a little stressful, trying to make sure that because if it's like a super windy, cold night, the heater has to work harder, and so making adjustments to the heater so that it maintains the right temperature. Yeah,
Right.
but
Right.
now I kind of know how I like it, and it's not that big of a deal anymore.
You mentioned Lisianthus, and I'm jealous because I tried for 4 years, and then I gave
Mm.
up on growing Lisianthus. And it's not much about the seeds germinating, because I got them to that phase germinating fine, but it was,
Uh-huh.
keeping them alive indoors. I failed miserably. So I'm done. I know Lisianthus
Yeah.
are not for me from seed. But are there any seeds that you have been struggling to grow? Maybe some years are just really hard to grow any specific seeds for you.
Yeah. So one that comes to the top of my mind is the crispedia, the like the little billy balls. I think some people call them the little yellow balls.
Mm-hmm.
I've had them germinate okay, and then those were harder to keep alive for some reason for me. I don't know if I overwatered them. So I have ended up getting a couple out into my yard, but then I have like just really bad. I don't know if I haven't put them in enough sun or too much sun. I have no idea. I don't know what I've done wrong. But I've only gotten like three or four tiny little flowers off of those. So if somebody has some like this is what you do for crispedia, that would be great. But it's funny. Some years I've had things that like do just fine, and then last season for whatever reason, I had just terrible luck in the greenhouse. I used a different soil, like I mixed my own soils, this seed starting mix, um, and I think whatever I mixed in that, they just didn't like it, and so I just had really poor germination, and it was kind of frustrating. Granted, I had a large vacation last summer, and so I was gone for a month in June, and so it was like, oh well, it's fine. I probably wouldn't have been able to keep them alive past that anyway, and so it ended up being kind of a wash. It was fine, but now this year I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I use the right stuff because I have a lot of stuff I would like to start, and I want it to be healthy and fantastic. So even when you think you know what you're doing, you change a one little thing, or you just have a bad growing year, and it happens to all of us. So it's I think as gardeners we are the eternal optimists. It's always like, oh, next year will be better. Next year will be better. So I'm definitely saying that. I'm like, I hope this year is better than last year.
Well, Craspedia, it's funny that you mentioned that one because this is the first year that I'm going to try that one. And I have like 4 packets
Mm,
of seeds. So I think that I'm
okay.
going to like just throw a bunch of little extra seeds in there. And hopefully, like you say,
Yeah.
not the germinating part, but the growing afterwards, it was the hard part
Mm-hmm.
for you. So if you're watching this video
Mm-hmm.
and you have like no problems growing it, or you found something to do a little bit different, then you definitely tell us in the
Yeah.
comments because I
Please
definitely could use all of the extra help.
share all that information. That would be great.
Awesome. So if you could go back, way back before your greenhouse, to the first year that you started, growing from seed, what would you do differently?
I think I would just try to not get so frustrated. I think, any skill that you want to learn, you're starting at zero, right? And that's okay. And be more willing to experiment with different things. I think that for those first few years, maybe I was just trying to save money and not buy as many seeds or something, but buy an extra packet of seeds. They're only $3 or $4, right? And experiment with how you want to try and grow them. It's been amazing. I don't do a ton of winter sowing, but I do some because there's a lot of perennials I like to start that need that cold stratification. And so a few years ago, I bought enough seeds that I could try several different methods. So sometimes I start seeds, or to get that cold stratification, I'll put them in between a wet paper towel in a Tupperware. I just stack, layer all those the paper towels with the seeds in a Tupperware and put them in my fridge. So sometimes I did that with some of the seeds, and then with some of the seeds, I just would put them in a milk jug. I've seen that milk jug winter sowing method, and I put some
Hmm.
in the milk jug and put those outside, and some I just put in a 6-inch pot on top of the soil, or buried them a little bit, and then put those just open out in the garden, and just to see what would happen. And it was interesting what seeds did better with different methods. So just be just try different things. This works for one person, this works for one person. We'll try both of them and see what works for you, and to not like get so frustrated with myself when something didn't work. It just means I just didn't know enough at that point. And everything you try, every question you ask, you gain a little bit more information, a little bit more confidence, and you just add to your knowledge every year. And it's okay that you
Right.
don't know a whole lot at the beginning, and enjoy your successes and don't get mad at yourself about your failures, because that just means you need to learn a little bit more, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I am so glad that we had, the time to chat. And I mean, we honestly, I could go for hours. Like you say, you find intro. I'm an
Yes.
introvert. I'm an introvert too. We can just keep on talking about seed started and,
Yep.
gosh, so many things to share. But hopefully, the people watching this video, especially if you're, a newbie and you want to start seeds, or maybe you had your first year in 2025 and it went like really bad. Like we all have years, no
Hmm.
matter. I had been doing this for almost, this will be my seventh year, and last year I had such a hard time with some of the seats that I had been successful with years before. And it's just going
Hmm.
to the change. You're going to have struggles, sometimes different struggles every year. But I'm so glad that I could have you, because I feel like a lot of people watching, if they watch a lot of people with the same setups, it's easy to see or to find hard to do the same thing. But I am just glad to show people your setup, your greenhouse, your amazing results that you have, your amazing garden. And hopefully people can get inspired to say, maybe, maybe I can do this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a skill. You just learn little by little as you go, and and I think, I'm sure you're the same. If anybody DMs me and wants to know about the greenhouse or whatever off on my Instagram, I am more than happy to answer questions and talk about it. It's fun to help people learn enough that they can enjoy plants and gardening and stuff just as much as I do. I love helping, answer questions and stuff too. So
Perfect. So I am going to be adding, again, Jessica's information over here somewhere at the bottom, but also in the video's description. Thank you so much for meeting me. Thank you so
yeah,
much for
absolutely.
chatting with me. And I cannot wait for this year.
Yep. I know. Happy gardening, everyone.
Happy gardening.